Greetings, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. It's Tuesday evening, starting about 5 minutes late, which, of course, with all the snow and issues that we have this time, maybe that's okay. But we meet every Tuesday evening at the Hy-Vee Club Room, the west side of the store, and we go until 9 o'clock. We always encourage people to come on down, check us out, bring your shopping list, because you can go shopping afterwards and head home with that errand taken care of as well. The mission of a Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. So let's hear it for our mission. All right. We do have a guest here this evening, and let's go ahead and ask you, Bill, to stand up and give us your name and also what brought you to Toastmasters.
Sure, I'd be happy to. My name is Bill Cortesio. I live in Appanoose County near Centerville, Iowa. I was born in Rathbun before they had a dam, so it's hard for me to be pretentious at all.
So,
Okay,
right.
but I'm interested, I'm changing jobs. I'm going to be a job where I'm going to have more person-to-person contact. And I thought Toastmasters might be a good way for me to practice on someone other than a client.
yes,
So,
very good.
and in the past, I've had coworkers that have gone to Toastmasters, and it's remarkable the difference that it's made in certain people that were timid or afraid to speak at all, and how they gain grace and confidence. So your organization has been around for a long time, so I'm convinced that this is a real good option.
Great. That's really good. Thank you, Bill. Okay, since you already know, we have a word of the evening and you're already becoming advanced. I will mention for everyone that we do a lot of clapping here. So just you can follow, you probably know already some of this, but I'd like to see everyone clapping so that the person up here, and I'm giving a speech tonight, so this is a little bit personal motivation here, feels really good. Because it's hard sometimes to come up here and speak. And so we want everyone to feel really supported. That's part of Toastmasters. My name is Jean Symington Craig. I am the president. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the meeting over to our Toastmaster. And I'm going to mention here, everyone has an agenda, but we've done a little bit of switching around. And so our Toastmaster for this evening is going to be Veda Royale. Veda, would you come on up, please, and tell us?
Thank you, Jean. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, honored guest, and viewers at home. Today we have a quote, and I'm wondering if someone knows, I know a person named Nas. The person listed as the quote master is N-A-S, Nas.
Yes.
Is this the person on the internet who does Facebook posts, or?
He's somebody who popped up, I think he's a rapper.
A rapper, okay, that's a different Nas.
He's known as, he calls himself a conscious rapper, or people call him. Anyway, you can look that up.
Okay, great, that's someone else. Anyway, he says, I want to have fun. It's a beautiful life. You learn, you win, you lose, but you get up. And I think maybe the point is, when we're down, when we lose, we still get up. When we win, we can get up further. So that's what Toastmasters is about, is to get up further. So this evening, we're going to have one speech, and I'm going to introduce the role players for this evening now. The timer tonight is Janet Evertson. Would you like to speak out your role?
Thank you. As timer, I will turn on the green light when Jean gives her speech at 5 minutes. And then the yellow light at 5.5, 6 minutes. And the red light at 7 bells. Okay. And then other speeches will be shorter. If we have table topics, that's 1 minute green light, 1.5 yellow, 2 minutes red. And the evaluators is 3-4 minutes, 2 minutes. And 2.5 yellow, 3 red. And I will give a report.
Table topics evaluator might, this guy usually later, the table topics evaluator, but it might be 3 to 5.
It's gonna be short.
Okay,
Okay,
3.
so it's gonna be shorter. We'll announce that before table topics. Thank you very much, Janet. The next role player is the grammarian. Please give your role, Carmen.
My responsibility as a grammarian is to have a comment on the positive and negative uses of English during this meeting, and also to introduce a new word, which is today's word. It's pretentious, which is showy, ostentatious, self-important, grandiose, acting as though one were more important than is the case. So my sentence today is, I think some people enjoy being pretentious.
Name someone.
Well, we know a lot of people
Yeah.
actually, but I really like that our guests already used that word of the day, and I encourage all of you to use it throughout this meeting.
Thank you, Carmen. I guess with my lack of foreknowledge of being Toastmaster, I feel the opposite of pretentious. You know, instead of suit and tie, I have a long-sleeved white shirt here. So the next person is the eye counter. Please give your role to the audience, Mr. Peter Armstrong.
Fellow Toastmasters, tonight my job as a counselor is to look for those words that tend to work their way into our speeches, but do not improve the speech particularly. The words especially that I'll be looking for are like, you know, so, but, and, tongue clicks, Xeroxes, meaning saying the same thing a few times just to fill in the time, and a false start where we begin a sentence or a thought and then stop, regroup, and start over again. I will deliver a report at the end of the meeting.
Later in the evening, we'll be introducing our general evaluator, who will be Dee Stouffer, who will have the job of evaluating the evaluators and giving an overall critique of the meeting. And we'll also have we're hoping to have a joke, which was my former role. We're hoping that Janet can come up, as we've done a lot of switcheroo tonight. And we've had a last-minute switch also in our evaluator. So I'd like to call up our evaluator with special instructions to Dan to call me back up for the brief introduction. He will be coming up to give the objectives of the speech. Please welcome Dan.
Tonight, Jean's going to be doing Project 6 in the Competent Communicator Manual, fellow Toastmasters. She has done this manual before and is just about to finish it for the second time. Some might say that was pretentious. The objectives of her project tonight are to use voice volume, pitch, rate, and quality to reflect and add meaning and interest to your message. Use pauses to enhance your message. Use vocal variety smoothly and naturally. Her talk will be 5 to 7 minutes. Let me invite the Toastmaster up to read Jean's introduction. Rita Loretta.
Thank you. Jean has been a Toastmaster since 2006 and has achieved the Distinguished Toastmaster Award, the highest award given to Toastmasters. She has served in a variety of roles within the Golden Speakers Club, and presently that includes the president, which she now serves in. In addition, she serves as a club liaison to the Conscious Communicators Toastmaster Club at the Iowa Penitentiary Maximum Security Facility in Fort Madison, where she is also a member. So we've talked about her objectives in Project 6, so I'm going to announce now the speech. Jean Symington Craig, Speaking to God Through Brahms. Jean Symington Craig, Speaking to God Through Brahms. Please help me welcome Jean.
Fellow Toastmasters, I was exhilarated. I was sitting in the balcony for the Denver Symphony Orchestra's performance that fall 1987 Saturday evening, swooning over violinist Nadja Salerno-Sonnenberg playing the Brahms Violin Concerto in D. Why was I so moved by this event? It was the concerto itself and the artist performing it. First, the concerto. I fell in love with Brahms' Violin Concerto the very first time I heard it. Johann Brahms is widely considered to be one of the greatest composers of the 19th century. The distinguished violinist David Oistrakh, with the renowned conductor Otto Klemperer and the French National Orchestra, played this concerto on a record that I found in my parents' record collection when I was home on a college break one time in the 70s. Instant infatuation. Have you ever heard a piece of music or felt that it was something that just embodied who you were? Where you felt understood and validated and even freed every time you heard it? That was what this concerto did for me. Secondly, the artist. I was watching 60 Minutes, the TV news show, earlier in the year while the host interviewed Nadja Salerno-Sonnenberg, a rising violinist superstar, and asked her about her passion for this exact concerto, her signature piece. I was mesmerized. She said it was like talking to God whenever she played it. When she played it, she was well known for her physicality, her swooping motions, her gyrations, her face filled with passion and euphoria. I understood at that point that she knew how I felt about this concerto and that we shared this passion for this piece and that we had the same exuberant divine experiences with it. I felt that we were kindred spirits. Imagine my delight when I snagged tickets to hear her play my Brahms Violin Concerto in my hometown of Denver. There were other people there that night, but they're really not significant to the story. I was communing with myself and with God through Nadja's electrifying performance. At intermission, I went to the box office, convinced that I had to hear the matinee performance the next afternoon, Sunday afternoon. It would be almost sacrilegious to miss it. Horrors. The tickets were all sold out for that show. The next day, Sunday, I was at home and feeling more and more like I was not where I needed to be. Have you ever felt that way? As the pressure increased, I made a radical decision. Nadja's portion of the afternoon was going to be in the second half of the program, preceded by an intermission. During these intermissions, I had been there before, everyone would stream outside into the courtyard to get a breath of fresh air, or the opposite, to get a smoke. When the bell rang to come back inside, no one checked tickets. I was going to crash that concert. I drove down to the Denver Center of the Performing Arts in time to mingle with the paid patrons during intermission. As I was edging myself into the crowd, I ran into some dear older friends, Al and Rosalie Brenman. Al was a distinguished lawyer, founding partner of his law firm. Rosalie was his elegant wife. I spilled out to them this story of longing and determination. I thought that they were going to be disapproving. Instead, they actually seemed rather tickled by my audacity. They said that there was a couple who had season tickets who hadn't been able to attend that day. Al and Rosalie said, we'll point out their seats and you can go and sit in one of those empty seats. I was ecstatic and I was so grateful. The bell rang, everyone came back in, it's time for the big event. Al and Rosalie pointed out the empty seats. They were front row, right in front of Nadja. Nothing between her and me. When she started playing, allowing her body to flow with that inner lively emotion, I felt implicit permission to do the same. Since I knew every nuance and phrase of that concerto, I found myself moving as though I were at a free-spirited rock concert, mirroring her movements as we exulted together in the rapture of this divine experience that was this music. Afterwards, I was just tingling with what I had experienced and what I had witnessed. I caught up with my friends, Al and Rosalie, and I said, wasn't that fantastic? Rosalie, with a smile on her face, little smile on her face, said, what was really interesting was watching you. What I realized at that moment, because I was right front and center with the artist and the whole performance, the entire concert hall had been privy to my passionate gyrations and shared experience. Honestly, I didn't care at all. I had been to heaven and back with Nadja Salerno-Sonnenberg and my beloved Brahms Violin Concerto in D.
Please take a minute to evaluate the speech with the forms. After that unpretentious break, we will now introduce the evaluator for Jean Symington Craig. Her esteemed husband, Mr. Dan Craig, will be evaluating. Please help me welcome Dan.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, if there was ever a time for me to be careful, it is now. At the beginning, we heard the objectives of this talk, which centered around vocal variety, and the evaluation guide that I have in the Competent Communicator Manual touches on those various points. I'll just show you really quickly that it asks if the topic was suited for vocal variety, how the volume, rate, pitch, quality of the speaking went, if the pauses were good, expressiveness, vocal variety, organization, word usage, body language, the whole gamut. In all of those areas, Jean did extremely well. There are 2 places that I thought she could have perhaps improved. One related to volume. I noticed that in some of the louder passages of her talk, I had the feeling that she was speaking loudly in a stage whisper. Instead of saying, "Here they come," she was saying, "Here they come." And I just wanted to see a little more range between the soft and the loud. I thought that would have been a good thing to achieve. The variation in rate, pitch, and quality was quite evident. She was very expressive, full of emotion. Her vocal variety definitely enhanced the talk. Organization, very solid. And her word usage was very vivid and descriptive. She painted wonderful pictures for us. We felt like we were at those concerts with her. And body language was a large part of her delivery. That all went very well. I wish I'd been there to see it. It would have made a great video. The last place that I thought she could have improved a bit was in terms of pauses. There were a couple of places where she asked a rhetorical question of the audience, and I felt like she started up quicker than the audience could think about what the question was. And I believe I spotted 1 or 2 other places where a pause of a little more length would have been helpful. It finally asked me, what did you like about the speech? I liked the tremendous enthusiasm, the tremendous joy and enthusiasm that she had for this subject. This is an experience of hers that has really stuck with her, and she enjoyed very much sharing it with us. And I also liked her purposeful movement around the stage. You notice that when she began her talk and she wanted to talk about 1, the concerto, 2, the performer, she moved to the side of the stage. And that movement, that purposeful movement, really emphasized for us that she was making different main points. I believe, Jean, that you have real potential as a Toastmaster. And remember I said that. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dan. I am always astounded by Dan's ability to remain very unswayed, even when he knows the person really well, as far as his very objective, highly objective evaluations. And I have a question for the timer. I'd like to go back to Jean's speech. Did Jean qualify for the Best Speaker Award tonight?
Yes, by a split hair.
By a split hair, great. We'll get the timing later.
We'll get it later.
And as far as Dan's timing on evaluation, he's an evaluator tonight. Did he qualify for the evaluation portion?
Yes, he did. He was 326.
He was what?
326.
That's fine, within the ballpark. Okay, wonderful, because we'll have one more evaluator tonight. But now, for our further entertainment, we are going to be calling up the table topics master for tonight, whom is Peter Armstrong.
Whom is?
I'm trying to get something for the grammarian to do. Please help me welcome Peter.
Yes, thank you. For table topics tonight, we have something that's just a little different than usual. And it will work like this. Instead of me asking you a question of something like that, I will present each speaker with some letters like this. These letters will be different for each speaker, and they are certified genuine US government abbreviations. I do know what the abbreviations really stand for, but the object of this game is that each speaker will spend his speech doing two things. First thing is, possibly with the help of the audience, is to say, what do these letters, what words should I put? What should each letter introduce as a word? And the speaker, if the speaker wishes, can do this all by him or herself, or she can solicit input from the audience about what this letter should be representing. And that part might take 30 seconds or whatever you want. So that's 30 seconds into the 2-minute table topics. And then for maybe a minute or however long afterwards, once that's done and we have the words after the letters, then the speaker can explain to us what the mission is of that organization that we have just invented. And so the timing of it will be as usual, Janet, which is a minimum of 1 minute, maximum of 2 minutes with a 30-second grace period. And we won't try to control how much time we spend in each part. But I would hope that we would all get a good explanation of the organization, the imagined organization. So with all of that said, do we have any volunteers? In that case, I'll call.
Well, I'm sorry, I have to go to the restroom.
Ah.
You want to repeat it, because don't repeat it.
No, don't repeat it.
Don't repeat it.
Don't repeat it.
Okay.
I'll go.
Somebody go up on.
All right. We'll have one example.
I'll do okay, so
Or
it'll be
I'll
target
do one if
practice.
necessary. So pick any one.
Okay. I think I have the plan
Show it to
here.
the camera.
Okay, here we go.
Yep. And you can fill in with a pen if you like.
Okay.
So you can go through the process.
As far as the timing, you start 5 minutes late, everybody started. So, yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay. This is my acronym, and it stands for the Garage Association of Reformed Federal Overeaters. Now, this Garage Association is, by definition, filled with members that are former federal employees that are overeaters. Now, one of the reasons why this organization exists is because we want people who are overeaters to learn that they don't have to eat everything on their plate. They can throw it out. It can be garbage. So this organization is actually a support group for federal reformed. Did I say reformed? Right? Reformed. Yeah, so they're reformed, like they it's a little bit like retired. How about we do retired? Retired. Reformed and retired federal overeaters. And it's a support group because when you get retired, sometimes you're less active and you start to overeat. And you need to have that reminder that you can throw things out. And so they get together, they have their meetings. It can be twice a month or once a week if it's really focused. And learn how to have a plate full of food that they really like, eat part of it, and then throw the rest of it out. Turn it into garbage. And it's remarkable. They've done research on this to see, and it actually helps overeaters to reduce what they're eating, how much is going on into their stomach. There are subsequent organizations that take that garbage and actually redistribute it, so it's not getting wasted. But the key thing is these retired federal employees that are overeaters are actually getting healthier in their later life and learning some valuable skills. I recommend, if you are in that category, that you check out this organization. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. Jean has given us an excellent example of actually managing to put some useful information into a speech that had very little potential for that. Thank you, Jean, for coming in and taking care of that. I'll point out that the actual name of the office is the Greater Atlantic Regional Fisheries Office.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to come up and tell us what something means? I can tell that this topic is throwing everybody for a little bit of a tailspin here.
Should I try one?
We need at least one more.
If you like.
Yeah.
Yes. Sure.
Yeah.
Stand up if you want one. Take anyone.
How about you?
It's only got 3 letters. Jeez. Schultz? We should be timing this part, right?
Yes.
Timing.
Yes.
Okay, okay, good.
I thought it was from the point they speak.
We're breaking new ground here.
Thank you, Peter, for that challenging topic. Peter has a way of challenging our brains, and let me just inform you that former members, current members, future members, and even guests are welcome to come up as I fritter away my time. All I can think of is men's equestrian bakery. However, since it's a federal office, I'm going to have to change it to men's equestrian bastion. I'm thinking a bastion of men are needed to go to the southern border to help with the high-minded goal of perusing the border, because it's evident that the proposed wall is meeting with resistance. So why not just send all the men who have voted for Mr. Trump to the southern? It's hard not to lose it. To the southern border to put their patriotism on the line, and hopefully not too many casualties caused by horses will come about. The idea of men, not to be sexist, we're trying to inculcate the divisions of men to have the feeling of excitement, like the Wild West. Let them recreate the feeling of the Wild West and put them to a useful purpose. Instead of people ducking and playing paintball, I mean, what use is that? Let's put some men, or putting on horses and playing polo. I mean, that's no good. Let's just send all the men in the bastion on horses to the southern border. Thank you, Mr. Topic Master.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I'll go up. I have to
No,
go to the restroom.
we have
right?
to-
It's okay.
I
We
have
have
to
to
go to the restroom.
stop.
We're already,
We're like, because we got a late start.
We got a late start.
so it's,
Should we go?
so we're gonna take it out of the table
One more.
topics.
That's,
I'll go
no, we don't.
up. Okay.
It's according to the schedule because we started. So if you've got something at the end,
Well, we don't have two.
and we don't need to prolong this experiment any longer.
No, it's kind of fun.
I will mention that MEB is Metabolic Epidemiology Branch. I don't know of what department, but
Keep
You know.
those, I won't do that again.
maybe. I was just going to make a pledge that when next time I'm Table Topics Master, I'll ask ordinary questions. And I'm getting the greatest response from the participants. And Dee, thank you for offering to speak. So on that note,
Just Toastmasters.
I think I'm done.
Difficult at best, hilarious at worst. Thank you, Peter, for those wonderful table topics. Let me ask our timer, Janet, which table topic speaker is qualified?
Everyone,
All two.
Jean and Veda.
Okay, so take a moment to vote for the best table topics tonight. Okay, the votes are now being collected, and Peter will be tallying them. And so I will move on with the meeting to the table topics evaluation. Who is listed as Dan Craig. Is it Dan still? Oh, great. So we're gonna have a hard time figuring out who's the best evaluator. Dan, please come up. Please tell me what, Dan.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, we had two dynamic, creative speakers tonight. Our first speaker was Jean. I gave her pluses for creative naming of her organization. It would have been fun to try that out, Peter, actually. But the minus that I would have given Jean was that once she named, excuse me? The tiny little suggestion that I have, not a minus at all, is that once she named her organization, she didn't appear to have a great deal of loyalty to the original name. During the course of her talk, she changed this word, and then she said, well, let's make that one that word. So it gave you a certain feeling that it was pretty fluid. I thought when she started out, it was the Garage Association, but later it was always garbage.
It was.
And then there was something that turned into retired. That's a plus and a minus. She had no boundaries in her talk, exuberant freedom, but it left us wondering what we were hearing. Our second speaker was Veda. I never would have thought of equestrian. That was very creative. But I like the name that you came up with. And I especially like that you decided right at the beginning that since it was a federal agency, it really ought to be Bastion. That made a lot of sense. I would note two things that maybe you could watch. One is that you managed to fritter away quite a bit of time at the beginning But it was fun
Strategic.
because you said, you basically said, I'm stalling while the clock
Strategic,
runs out.
Frederick, strategic.
The other thing was, I really, this is a plus and a minus, I really enjoyed the way you went with it. The Equestrian Association down on the border doing their thing. The minus part is that's skirting a little close to politics, which is a no-no for our
No written
group
rules
in
against it.
general. But I believe that both you and Jean deserve great congratulations for being extremely pretentious in your delivery and very entertaining. Mr. Toastman.
Thank you, Dan. I guess the best thing out of this is that we probably both had tremendous fun with one of the most challenging topics to date. And I didn't know there was a rule against speaking about politics, and I was careful not to really tip my political persuasion.
Yeah.
Talk more about the issue than my opinion of the issue. So it's come time to call up our general evaluator in order to give the reports for this evening, to call for the reports. Let me welcome Dee. Thank you, Dee. So the reports you'll be giving will be the regular reports here for the role players, and Janet will be the joke
Well,
master.
I'm the general evaluator.
Right, you're gonna
Yeah.
do this, but you're gonna call these people
Oh, okay, all right.
for the reports. Thank you.
2 minutes?
Hmm?
No, you don't time. You don't time.
No time. So one thing I really liked about this meeting today was the humor.
First, you're gonna do the reports. You see-
Reports, as per the timer's
As per-
report.
Oh, the timer's report.
see on
Do
there,
you have
see
your
on there?
Yeah, look at the agenda and just go
Oh,
down.
the timer's report.
Yeah, just go down the agenda and ask for these.
Okay, oh, okay. Janet, the timer,
Yes.
Okay.
who qualified?
Here we go.
I believe everyone qualified today, except Dan's last evaluation. It was 240, and I lost track if that was too long. Was it?
It's-
2.5?
Just read the name and the
Okay.
time, that would be good.
We had Jean with her speech was right. Her last word was just before the 7-minute time.
So you know I would have had 30 seconds.
Yeah, I realize that now, but at the time I was panicking that it was
Okay.
7. Anyway, it was 7.
Okay, great. This is
Really good. And then the evaluations, Jean was 1 minute and 49 seconds. Beta was 2 minutes and 22 seconds.
Topics.
table topics.
Table topics. I have 327, so I don't know if I managed to
That must have been an
pay
evaluation.
attention to all those table topics. Wait a minute. I didn't write it down. Or was that the table topics? Yeah, Jean and Beta. Those are the table topics.
Yeah.
And then you have
149?
Evaluations.
Who are the bad? Dan
Dan's
evaluated both times.
Dan and Dan.
327, the first one, and 240, the second one.
Marion.
Grammarian. Yes, Carmen?
And then,
You can shake your hand.
Today's meeting has been really fun. It was a funny meeting. It was an excellent speech. It was a great guest because you used my pretentious word for today. And actually, this word has been used for 4 people, which is quite unusual. Almost nobody uses the word. So my applause to all of you who, Veda, you, no, you didn't, okay. Peter, Dan, and our guest. So my grammarian report today is for your speech, Jean. There was a couple of sentences that were pretty good, and I really like it. For example, when you say, she said that it was like talking to God, or I felt that I was hindering spirits. And you said that with such a emotion that you really mean it, that you were just feeling at the same time, which was pretty good, and I really like it. For Veda, actually it was fun to just not only in your grammar, but today you were having fun because you were not the Toastmasters indicated in the for today. So you improvise today's speech, but it was fun. Your table topics was also really, really good, and I was just laughing. I know that sometimes it didn't make any sense, but I was laughing. So it was real good. And then for Peter, it was a really game. I never seen that one before. I saw another version, some kind of the same thing, but it was not the same. So this is more like a game. The other version was in California when I was in the Toastmasters over there, and maybe when I am the table topics, I will show it to you how it works. And for Dan, I really like it when you say I need to be careful with all my evaluations because it's your wife, the one that is speaking. And then I know when you are at home, nobody knows what's going on over there tonight. So okay, it was a really good meeting. So and I really enjoy.
So we have the grammarian report, our counter.
Tonight's counter report is quite brief and will be unpretentious. Veda, I noticed one or and a single so. Carmen, 3 ahs or ums. Peter, 1 at least or And I may have gotten distracted by all of the activity in the speeches or the jokes that were being played, and it's hard to maintain your focus as counter. So some might have slipped past. For that, I apologize. I don't know. If there were any that slipped past, they'll be visible on the table. Thank you.
Veda, read your Toastmaster.
We've got a substitute. We have a substitute joke master.
Oh.
Yay, all right, Dan.
Mr. General Evaluator, I'd like to inspire you with some quotes from 2 of the great American philosophers, raise our tone of the meeting. The first is Yogi Berra.
I know this.
He said, you can observe a lot just by watching. He says, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And my favorite is, nobody comes here anymore, it's too crowded. The other great philosopher is Will Rogers. One of his quotes is, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. He said, when you find yourself in a hole, quit digging. Another one, live in such a way that you would not be ashamed to sell your parrot to the town gossip. And finally, good judgment comes from experience. And a lot of that comes from bad judgment.
Okay, next, we give the awards.
No, you actually can give a brief general evaluator report, how the meeting went.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I start with Carmen's good use word of the day. There was in the flow of the of the speech by Jean, very expressive, and she said, "I am as guilty as anyone, knowing the length of the time of each speech." Carmen used the word of the day. Peter, I like Peter's expression in the words of the day. I've never done this before, so I'm sort of lost, excuse me.
It's all right, you don't have to say anything, you don't have to give.
Well, I have some notes here, though. Table topics, Peter, let's see, yeah, I'm sort of, I don't know what.
Mostly just talk about the evaluators, and if there's any overarching point about the meeting, you can give it. Talk about Dan.
He's having a, I can't read my notes moment.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
did you,
I took notes.
did
I'm
you
just-
evaluate Dan? Just tell us how Dan did in his evaluations, both of them. That's the main thing.
Oh, so, yeah, I'm a little lost about this role. I wasn't prepared.
Okay.
Apologize.
Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Call me back. Just return
Default
the.
Toastmasters.
Now,
Toastmasters.
Toastmasters, Janet.
No.
Mr.
Oh,
It's
Beta.
been dated, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
here we go.
Thank you very much, Dee. There I said, add one to my list. In order to make some final commentary on the meeting, since we didn't get an evaluation of Dan, I'll just remark that Dan's evaluations are remarkable. Point on, spot on, really wonderful, objective, informative, and thoughtful. And I didn't prepare to give any negative criticism of Dan. And finally, we come to the moment of truth. And truth is a flexible thing. We had two evaluators, Dan and Dan. So Dan will be receiving the Best Evaluator Award. And that's only because he disqualified himself against himself. The other one lost.
So I get the whole thing by myself.
Yes. And because it seems like a couple of people are getting confused between who is Jean and who is Janet, the J word, I believe the truth is that Jean has won the best table topics for this evening. Along with,
Somebody voted for Janet, huh?
yes,
A third party voter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
A write-in.
along with, while you're up here, by your wonderful speech, and if any,
Speaker.
and only speaker, but if anyone else possibly compared, I don't believe they would have ever won against that wonderful speech. So here is your
Thank you.
ribbon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And so that concludes my portion of the meeting. And I will be returning control to our Madam President, Miss Jean Symington Craig. Ms.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you. I want to thank everyone who was stepping into roles at different times. You never know what you're going to need to do to support the club when you arrive here, but it builds flexibility into your system, and it really helps the club continue on because things happen to people. Hudaifa was up in Iowa City and couldn't make it back in time, flus and travel and all that kind of stuff. So you never know what's going to happen. It's a wild card situation. It's Zeta mentioned Wild Wild West. It's Wild Wild West right here. A great meeting tonight. I'm going to mention, I'd love to have your evaluations. When you are done, please put your name on them. Just jot first name at the bottom. So then I can, just kind of thank you when I'm eating my milk and cookies tonight for the help. Bill,
Yes.
as our guest for the evening, would you like to stand and just tell us something positive that you liked about the meeting or an
Well,
impression?
I did enjoy the meeting very much. I liked the tone and I liked the humor. And it was well organized and your agenda was laid out and was adhered to. And so it was well worth the time. I enjoyed it very much.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming. Dan is our Vice President of Membership. You're certainly welcome to come again as a guest. You can also speak to him about any procedures or questions you may have about becoming a member.
Well, you know what Yogi Berra says.
Oh,
It's hard to make predictions, especially about the future.
Whoa, that's almost like a quote for the night. Then he used or the theme, Yogi Berra. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's a good one. All right. We have club business that we need to work on. Bill, you're completely fine to leave if you like, or you can stay and just be privy here. So it's up to you. We are having our special event, which is our open house, annual open house on January 29th. So that is 2 weeks from today. It's at the public library. We've had great efforts by Hudaifa and Janet and Terry, who was our guest speaker, putting together the promotion. Hudaifa has did posters. I'm gonna let Dan do our poster handouts, because as club members, we're all gonna need to help publicize. So we want you to take, and Dan will organize, we want you to take some posters with you, and we're gonna put them out around town. This is kind of the way it works a lot here. So I'm gonna let Dan do that. Now, Terry, I wanna talk to you just real briefly after the meeting is done. And Janet, I wanna talk to you just real briefly after we're done. But this is it. We're coming down. Next week, I am out of town. Dan is in town. So we all knew this was coming. So I will get back and we will, on the 27th, Sunday the 27th, and our event is the Tuesday the 29th. So I'm really not micromanaging anything, you guys are doing great, what you're doing. We're hitting our timelines on what we need to do, but it's, you guys are doing it. Now I want to comment, because after our special event on the 29th, the next two Tuesdays, the next two meetings, Dan and I are both out of town. Now these are important meetings because, we're hoping we have people come and join, and this is what we do, Bill, is we're having this open house, and then we encourage people to join Toastmasters. But it just happens that we're going to Cabo San Lucas, and that's what we're doing. So it's our romantic holiday, and we make up for all the, bad stuff we said about each other in Toastmasters throughout the year. Peter is also going to be gone, is what he says too. So that means you guys that are left, we need you to hold the fort. And Janet, as the Vice President of PR, since our other President, Vice President membership and education are out, you are the next in line for being the acting president. So, you know, you're watching this. If you want, you can look at videos. Dan will have this video up. You can see what needs to happen. But this is where you step up. And if it's a little uncomfortable, you know, that's part of the growth process. And I know you know that. So that's what we do. We step out of our comfort zone and we grow as a result. So I just want to tell you, because we really need to have, you know, meetings that are going to work after that special event. In fact, we might want to ask Hudaifa to wait until after the special event as a thought, because then he would be here to give a speech on the 5th.
Somewhere in that.
So that
range.
it's got that, okay. And then the 14th, the week of the 14th, Hy-Vee often takes this room because it's the big flower day of the year, and they use this room for flowers. So we may not have the room on the 12th. Okay, so Dan, help me remember. I got to connect with Hy-Vee and ask about that. It's always unfortunate timing for our open house, but that's just a heads up.
So what would, we may have to get an alternate location?
Well, the main thing I'm concerned about is having people who attended our open house come here and there's not, you know, not a meeting. And I don't quite know, I definitely want a sign on the door that says, you know, Hy-Vee flower production is, you know, we're kicked out, something like that. I want one of you guys to do that. Okay, also the officer meeting that would be scheduled on the 5th, which is the first Tuesday of the month, I will not be able to do that, and we can't do it the night of the open house because we're going to be too busy and like that. So the officer meeting, I'm actually going to put out into February, which would be we'd actually be on the 19th. Peter will be back, Dan and I will be back, and I want to get some breakdown of and discuss how our open house went and how you guys are doing. Okay? With that, all right, so you guys can I get some nods, like you're processing this and it's getting in? Okay, good. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna let Dan come on. Dan?
Can I suggest that we go ahead and gavel the meeting closed, and then I'll do this poster bit. It's not riveting video.
Well, you could turn the video off. Okay, so all right.
I don't know why the meeting has.
All right, well, here we go. So this is closing the meeting for show, okay? So at this point, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and we're gonna be discussing things, more organizing material. So meeting is adjourned.